This is Spare Time Repair, and this is a JVC XL-V151 CD player. This one caught my eye for its silver grey styling and almost symmetrical design. I say almost because the display is annoyingly off-centre, but it is at least bright and full of information. This was eBay listed for parts or repair, because although the loading tray accepts a disc, it just groans instead of reading it. When this model was launched in 1991, the CD format was well established, and manufacturers were happy to brag about their refinements to the technology. But I'd be surprised if there was a more pompous boast than this pulse edge modulation differential linearity errorless DA converter. Hopefully I can repair this machine and see if it lives up to its own hype. I'm quite a fan of JVC stuff. I think their design was right up there with Sony. And there's a lot I like about this player. Well, we already have a desiccated ladybird. The last JVC player I looked at was full of bugs. Are they particularly welcoming to insects? Well, I think they are. We've got a whole family of them in here. Well, there's 5 for starters. Perhaps we should play a game. Guess how many ladybirds there will be in total. Well, there's no screws in this disc clamp, so I can't immediately see how it comes off. Maybe you have to push it in. It also looks like these screws stop the tray from sliding out completely, but the left-hand one is missing. There's no sign of a thread being cut in though, so I don't think there was ever one in there. Oh, look what fell out. The ladybird count is up to 6. Well, let's power this up. See if we can remove the tray. Well, the disc clamp screws were underneath the tray. The pickup is JVC branded. I didn't know they made their own pickups. It's almost certainly going to be this belt that's the problem. The problem for me is that it's pretty big. I mean, it's pretty chunky. Okay, it looks like when the tray closes, it presses this lever which sends this gear into this one. That enables it to grab hold. You can see the belt's too slack to do it properly. But if I give it a helping hand, it's going to lift this mechanism up into the play position. So to change that belt, it looks like I've got to remove these 2 screws and then unhook this spring, and hopefully this whole piece will lift out. It's a very weak spring. I don't want to overstretch it. But it still won't release. So there's a metal post under here. That's how it's raising the bed. But I do have enough access now to remove the belt. Well, the belts I have are far less chunky, but it might work. Well, the lens looks clean, but it's pretty dusty. I just had a closer look, so I'll give that a wipe. And I would be surprised if there's anything else wrong with this. I will give this a good clean, but for now I'm just going to make sure that it works. So let's check things with our 1991 CD. And yeah, it's read it fine. Not sure what's going on with the display though. Well, if you've seen my other CD player videos, you'll know I've got a bit of a bugbear about table of contents permanence. But I've never seen this before. So presumably that's the length of track 1. So I can cycle through and get all the track times. But why give me that information at the very beginning? And there's no button on here to change that setting. Like normally you'd have a time button that you could toggle through the options with. So maybe that was only available on the remote control? Well, this may only be of interest to me, but I did some research and found that this model didn't actually have a remote control, but the V251 did. In this image you can see the sensor for it to the right of the display, which explains the asymmetry. The remote does have a display mode button, and according to the manual it changes the time data in the display window, but it doesn't actually say what that means. Well, let's try that again. I do love this huge open close button, by the way. That's so weird. Well, I never thought I'd say this, but I'd rather it just said 0 than that. Anyway, let's plug in the amplifier, check we have playback. Well, everything needs a good clean, so I'm going to take the front panel off, and it looks like it's only connected by this flat flex cable. There's no linkage arm for this one. Power switch is all contained in the front. So let's remove the disc, and I'm going to take out the transport and the PCB just to make sure we've got no more insect visitors. In fact, to unscrew this transport, I really need the disc clamp to be off again. I actually think it's this screw that presses against this lever that starts that process I showed earlier. I can't see anything else on here that would do it. So now I've got full access to the transport screws. Then there's one more at the back. Well, those are just going into this plastic bracket, and that's just keyed into the base plate. It's not screwed down to it. So the only thing holding the whole transport to the base is this one screw at the back. Oh hey, here's Ladybird number 7. Here's the underside. Well, do you know what? When I was testing the player, I forgot to reconnect that spring, but didn't seem to affect it in any way. I think it's just meant to move this out of the way, but clearly it's not critical. But I'll do it now, just in case. There we go. So I've just manually moved the laser along the sled by turning this gear at the bottom. And we've got just a single sled rail to clean. Probably didn't need it, but it never hurts. And then the usual light coat of white lithium grease. Looks like all the screws for the front panel are in the bottom. Well, incredibly, there's only one. Looks like everything else is just held in with clips. Just noticed there's a little hole here that says tray open, so obviously in the event of a failure you can, I don't know, put a screwdriver in there and open the tray up. And if you look at the underside of the mechanism, that hole goes straight through to this cog here. So that would obviously manually eject the disc. Got a couple of bits of broken plastic from somewhere. In fact, I think there are 2 more screws, but they're hidden under the feet. Oh, you keeping count? I think that's number 8. No, there's only 1 screw under this side. I'm going to need to disconnect this cable and then just push these tabs in. There we go. There's number 9. In fact, I can see by looking down there, there's no more ladybirds. So congratulations if you guessed there would be 9 in total. No prizes, it's just for fun. We'll just give the base plate a wipe though. I have this system for keeping track of my screws, and I'm going to need to do that for this because they're all different sizes. Well, I'm going to give all these plastic parts a good clean, and I'm tempted to change this orange gel for a different colour, but we'll see. Well, that's everything cleaned in soapy water, and I don't think it would hurt to see what it looks like in blue. There's that hole for the remote sensor on the V251 model. Forgot to clean the power button, that's pretty grimy. So it hooks on the top first. Reconnect the flat flex. Actually, I think these screws go right through to the bottom panel. So when I said it was only this screw holding the transport in, yeah, I was mistaken. So what do you think? Will the display look better? Well, I hope so, because I don't want to take it apart again. So let's find out. I haven't put the feet back on yet, so I'm just propping it up with one of them now. Well, let's turn it on. Oh yes. Oh, come on, tell me that doesn't look better. What have I missed here? Well, of course, I'm an idiot. I haven't actually plugged in the transport. Bonus points if you spotted that. Alright, let's try that again. I honestly think the blue suits the player better. It's more complementary to the silver grey look. Well, okay, I'll grant you that the red program down here is a bit washed out, but that's not enough to convince me to change it back. But I'm still absolutely baffled about this default display status. Well, since this was a quick repair, I've cut some gels of different colours to see how those look instead. And another advantage of 1990s CD players is that they accept 3-inch CDs. I've only got one of them, and of course you could always use an adapter, but they do look pretty cool when they're sitting in the tray. And to begin with, I've removed the filter altogether, so this is how the display looks completely bare. In fact, I'm going to press the random button so we can see how the red area looks against different colours. And so I don't have to disassemble the whole thing again in between options. I've just loosened the adhesive on this front panel. That way we can quickly cycle through them. So first I'm going to try this smoky grey sort of gel colour. And that helps because it kind of hides the unlit sections and makes the rest easier to read. So it's essentially the bare display with a bit more clarity. Next we'll try yellow. I suspect this won't have a great effect. Yep, that looks terrible. This is sort of light pink colour. Again, that's pretty ineffective. Purple might be interesting. Well, no, it doesn't really impose itself, does it? I wonder if we combine the pink and the purple. No, don't like that. Sort of neon yellow. No, that's horrible. Green? Don't think that works either. Pure red. It's surprising just how bad that looks. You'd think orange and red would be pretty similar, but it doesn't work at all. It's a fairly light orange. No, again, it's too weak. And for reference, here's the original dark orange. So for me, it's got to be the grey or the blue. Well, I'm not convinced about the pulse edge modulation thing, but I think I like this player almost as much as those ladybirds, especially with the new look display. I was going to find the service manual and check the adjustments, but having listened to it for a few hours now, I don't think there's any need. It's a rock-solid performer, and if it wasn't for the weird each thing on the display, I'd have nothing bad to say about it. But what do you think? Would you have left the display colour as it was, or do you prefer the modification? Anyway, that's all for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.